Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wanted or needed to overcome challenges, then do we have the stuff show for you. Today I'll be talking with Dr. Sampson Davis, the emergency room physician, best-selling author, best known as one of the 3 friends from the inner city Newark who made a pact in high school to become doctors, and the best-selling co-author of the Pact, along with Dr. Jeter's amazing cancer survivor system, Sharlee Jeter, on the indomitable spirit to survive in the stuff. And that's just what I want to talk with them about today, about unlocking your power to overcome challenges, soar, and succeed. That, plus we'll talk about burnt orange corduroys, 50 cents and hot dog buns, an orange, an apple, and a handful of walnuts, what in the world are Ujima jams, Mindy and boogie wipes, and what on earth 2 Hershey's bars and exam have to do with anything. So welcome to the show, Sam and Sharlee. Are you both ready to shine?
Yes, we are. Thank you, Mike, for having us.
Woohoo! Well, thank you both so much. Sam, before we dive into your story, Sharlee, you truly are a survivor. What happened to you at 21?
Well, right before my 21st birthday, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. I was in the middle of my senior year of college in Atlanta at Spelman, and found out I had Hodgkin's lymphoma, wasn't expecting it. Really didn't have any symptoms leading up to it. And I found out that I had to do 6 months of chemotherapy treatments at Sloan Kettering in New York. And I asked my parents and my doctor if I could travel back and forth between Atlanta and New York every other weekend to do my chemo treatments for 6 months so that I could stay in school and continue.
What was the importance to you? First off, how did you even wrap your mind around the idea of, for lack of another term, come hell or high water, I'm staying in school?
I'm not sure. It was very unexpected, which I think cancer usually is for most people. And I was in the middle of my senior year. I wanted to finish school. I didn't want anything to get in the way of that. So at the time, I just assumed that it was me being young and saying, I don't want to stop going to school and I don't want to leave my friends and move back in with my parents to do treatments.
At some point, did you realize the power in that continuity, the power in that normalcy, the power of not giving in, of holding on to your life?
I don't think so. I think it was a young age. I think I look back at it now and say that I probably would have gotten through it completely different had I gone home, and I would have had more time to think about it and to feel sick. But I think it was very helpful for me personally to keep moving forward, continue living my life, and not missing out and holding up my school.
What was your secret? It sounds like from the way you describe in the book, the thing that you needed most to survive was sustenance, was nourishment, was energy. And the thing that you must have wanted to do the least was to eat.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have, like, I don't know, it was, I don't remember a lot of, or I don't really reflect much on that period. I think this book process was something that made me really look back and kind of dive into who I was and why I made the decisions I made. I literally, and Dr. Davis can talk further about this, but I literally believed that I just wanted to stay in school. That's it. Like, I wanted nothing different. I just wanted to stay in school. I did not want to move back home at all.
Gotcha. And Sam, if we look at your life, if we go back in time to your earliest years, what were they like?
Yeah, I mean, and before I even get to that, if I just could comment briefly on something Sharlee just, her last
Please do.
Statement. So we're talking about this concept, this stuff, and I'm looking at her, and she never realized, and I don't think we stop and think about this, that we have within us, this ability to overpower our circumstances and meet challenges head on. And so Sharlee never wavered in her course. She was strictly focused on finishing school and having a good time. And oh yeah, and by the way, beating cancer. Like, it was on her checklist of things to do, like it was laundry. And so I saw that in Sharlee, and I was just amazed that she didn't see it herself. I think she have these elements, the 11 elements we have for the stuff. She exudes these elements at all time in everything that she does. But the fact that she never really packaged it in her mind as something that is not necessarily common in everyone was mind blowing. I say, Sharlee, not everyone practice this way. They're defeated by their circumstances sometimes, and they feel they don't feel their very best about their situation. But your attitude is everything, and you have all these 11 elements that we talk about for the stuff, and you carry them not only in your fight, your past fight against cancer and beating cancer, but you practice them every day of your life in all that you do with your foundation and raising your son and being a good family member and to support to others. In her business acumen every day, she practiced these traits of these elements of the stuff.
Thank you so much for sharing on that. So throwing it back to Sharlee here. Sharlee, even your brother Derek said he didn't know if he would have been able to do what you went through with the strength that you brought to it. Any idea where that came from or how you had that strength to just keep stepping forward?
Well, I think I know I'm a very stubborn person. And if I have my mindset on doing something, there's not much that's going to pull me off course. Like my goal was I was going to stay in school. I had tried all this time to get out of, you live all these years and you just work to get out of your parents' house. And I had a great family, but they were very strict. I didn't want the rules. Like, go off to college, have fun with your friends. You finally start to get independence. And I'm almost done with school. I mean, everyone's about to graduate. And so my mind was set on that. And there wasn't much that was going to derail me from that course. And that's how I am pretty much with everything. Most of the time it works for me, sometimes not so great, but it worked in this instance.
Woohoo! So then, Sam, if we go to your story and talking about staying on course, there was a time where we had to first work to get on course. And so if we go back to early years and we talk about how our environment can affect us, I think in the long run, your environment was tremendously helpful for you. But in your earliest years, one heck of a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, it was just that. I was born in a very tough situation in poverty, crime-ridden city, Newark, New Jersey. But just like many inner cities across the country, there were challenges. And but from the beginning, I always knew there was something within me that felt moved to want to make something of my life. Like I did not want to be cemented in my neighborhood and not productive in life. I just was pretty clear on that concept at an early age. And so I didn't know how I was going to navigate the course. I just knew I wanted to make something of my life in the end. And it took a tremendous amount of faith and hope and belief in God that these things can materialize. But my barometer was if anything that I did wrong in life and growing up in those circumstances, I felt it in my gut. I just knew it was wrong. And when I was on the right course, I felt the joy and the jubilation of doing the right thing. And so it was one of the elements we talk about in this stuff is flipping negatives to positives. Yeah. And ironically, a lot of the negative that I saw around me on a daily basis, I knew I did not want to become that. I did not want to become another statistic. I didn't want to be a drug dealer. I didn't want to be on drugs. I didn't want to commit crimes. I didn't want to grow up and be impoverished all my life. I didn't know how I was going to get there. So it took a tremendous amount of faith. But I knew if I just stayed the course and do my best to be prepared, that when the opportunity presented itself, I could take full advantage. And so I was similar to that kind of saying, throw the dog a bone. I was so hungry and had the will to want to succeed. I just needed someone to throw me a bone of an opportunity to get there. And I knew that I may not be the smartest. I may not be the most gifted, but I was willing to work hard and more hard than anyone else would to get to where I needed to go.
Woohoo! Let's talk of maybe perhaps the biggest bone, the biggest, hairiest, scariest bone in the world, which I think was a huge, we'll go from bone to boon in your life. But at 17, when you went for a walk with your sister Felice to someplace you'd rather not have gone.
Yeah, I mean, that changed my life. At 17 and a half, I was arrested for robbery, a crime that I committed with 3 other guys my age. And we called ourselves the Robin Hood of the community. We were going to rob drug dealers and give back to the poor, which was us, of course. and we got caught. And at the time, what looked like the end of my life turned out to be a blessing in disguise. I was arrested and spent 4 weeks in juvenile detention. And during that process, I literally had a spiritual process take place. I saw my spirit leaving my body and looking down at my body. And I was in a cell at the time, and it was nighttime. I remember it was a thin sheet, thin mattress, and I'm sitting there, and basically I could hear my inner thoughts saying, "You have to change your life. Like, you cannot continue down this path, and if you do, you must know this is going to lead to your immediate demise." And so I was given a second opportunity. I returned home, and I went off to finish my senior year in high school, achieved all A's, and I made a pact with two of my other friends to become doctors. And that was a pretty unpopular thing to do from my era and from my community, to go on and pursue higher education. But we did it as a threesome and as a trio. And so we went off, and we were all three accepted to college. And lo and behold, all three of us were accepted. Two of us to medical school and one to dental school. And we graduated with our medical and dental degree, and never looked back. And then from that point, we just started to work towards creating opportunities for the community. We created a foundation, Three Doctors Foundation. We wrote a few books. And one of the elements in the stuff is to be a giver. And that's how I met Sharlee. Sharlee runs Turn 2 Foundation, which she's been running for, or which she's been a part of and leading for the past 20 years. She's been a part of giving back and being a giver. The Three Doctors Foundation, we do the same. And so we honored Sharlee and all that she does in throughout the country. And so from that point, we realized, that be a giver, it's in of itself is one of the sort of 11 elements of what it takes to have the stuff.
We're going to talk about those 11 elements. If I take you back, though, into juvenile detention, and for those who aren't familiar with juvenile detention, that's another word, and in Newark in particular, for hardened jail for youth. And this is a very scary situation. Did you make a pact after this spiritual... I got goosebumps and tears when you said it, so I don't even have the word that's strong enough. Did you make a pact that said, when I get out of here, I'm going to do things differently?
So I made a promise to myself right then and there that this would never happen again. When I was in front of the judge, he told me to bring my toothbrush because if I was to ever come back there, I would be going away for a long time. And I did return, but as an expert witness in a medical case, it was a way better feeling. But I didn't know. I really wish it was that defined as far as I knew the course I was going to take. From there, I had no clue. But one thing was definite: I was not returning to jail. That was not going to happen. And I knew my situation. From youth like me that's been through this process. When you don't have a great choice to choose from, these are the things that happen. And I'm not blaming anyone. I think that I knew that it was up to me to take care of myself from that point on. And so when I had the second opportunity, I just knew that I was going to keep walking the course to getting to where I need to go until I find my destiny. And nothing was going to get in the way of that, from preventing me from getting to where I needed to go.
Thank you. What did you do? Sort of like Sharlee, I can't see any roadblock, at least in the education system, that could have possibly gotten in her way. You had a little bit of Sharlee at the end of your sophomore year when one point came in your way.
Yeah, so you're speaking of failing the USMLEs. So I'm in medical school, and quite frankly, along the way, I never really had academic challenges. I was pretty smart in school. I never really applied myself because there was this sort of you would get teased if you show off your academic excellence. So I used to try to hide that. In my neighborhood, that was something that was frowned upon. If you were smart or educationally gifted, you would get called nerd. And so I didn't want to have those names, so I would try to show this kind of bravado about me. But all along, I enjoyed school. I enjoyed doing well in school. And once I made it through college and got into medical school, everything was okay. And then I had an exam, a big major exam what you call a United States medical licensing exam, and there's 3 parts. In my first part, I took the exam, and I failed the exam by 1 point. And it rocked my core. It rocked me to the core. I started questioning God. I started questioning everything around me. Like, why did this happen to me? Like, what did I do to sort of deserve this? And it wasn't my ability at the time. I pretty much just freaked out during the exam. So I studied again to retake the exam, but this time I did things differently. I exercised. I actually meditated. I would do things to try to calm my nerve and to try to go to that place of calm when I took the test. And so when I studied for the test the second time, I went to take the long test, which was about 8 hours, and I brought 2 Hershey chocolates with me. Each Hershey chocolate was a reward for each time I finished a part of the exam. So the first block was about 3 hours, 4 hours. I had a Hershey chocolate at the end, and then the second block was another 4 hours. And at the end of that, I had the second Hershey chocolate. Needless to say, I went on to pass the test very, very much confidently beyond what the minimum score was, and I never looked back since.
Woohoo! And you've got me thinking back to grad school. I don't know if it was the I don't know what it was for MBA and such that I took GMAT or something like that. And I'm remembering now I had Hershey's bars there with me as well.
So that might have been the answer then, Hershey chocolate.
It may have been. Sharlee, how did you guys meet and how did you end up working together on this book?
Okay, so as Sampson mentioned, his foundation honored me at one of their events. We had a mutual sponsor in common, and she was on their board, I believe, or was a huge sponsor of their organization, and had recommended me to be honored, and our foundation to be honored at their charity event. So that's how we met, and then just became really close friends. But from that, I was so inspired by their story, by all 3 of them. I had asked Sam to come and speak pretty much to every one of my programs for my foundation. I wanted all my youth to hear his story. And we were flying back from a baseball clinic that he actually spoke at for us in Tampa. And when we were on the flight, Sam used to, and this is, since we have more time, I can really dive into this, but I used to work on these plane rides back, and I would have papers everywhere and highlighters and stuff all over the place. And Sam would always interrupt me at some point with some bright idea that he had, like new project. So I have this idea. So this is what I want to do. And they're always pretty brilliant. Some are more brilliant than others. But he had this idea he was really excited about. And he said, I'm just really intrigued by people who have an obstacle. They face an obstacle and they overcome. I mean, they just hit it. They are very confident. They say, I'm going to defeat this, this battle. I'm going to get through it. And they come out on the other end and they're very successful, while other people allow it to completely shut them down and it defeats them. And then as I'm sitting there like, tell me more. I was so excited. And he said, so I would like to, travel around, talk and meet with people and interview people that have overcome, huge obstacles or challenges. And then I want to see if they all share a common gene. And then it was like, I was like, okay, you lost me. I was really excited. And then I was like, please don't do this book because I don't want to have to read it, because I'm going to have to read it because we're friends and I'm always going to support you. But, I'm not interested in reading about the gene. That's totally over my head. But what I think you are really, really good at, I mean, he's gifted in speaking to young people and adults and translating things in a way that people can digest it and they understand it. And so I thought, well, if you could do this same thing and look at these same things and do it with ordinary, everyday people that everyone can relate to, and you can see if there are common elements or common traits that each one of these people share in common, then you would have something huge that you could offer out there. Like because of my work with the foundation, I knew that we teach our kids, certain things that they need to possess, things they need to, how they need to support each other and come together and have a team, and how they have to be healthy and how they have to tell themselves positive things and make sure, there's a lot of things that we teach our young people in our programming. And I knew there was stuff out there, and I knew there was some type of common thread between the individuals that do overcome obstacles and major challenges. But there was a lot I would want to learn about it. And he said, well, I don't understand what you're talking about, Sharlee. You have, at the time we hadn't coined it the stuff, but he basically was saying, you have this, you have these traits, you have this stuff. And I'm like, wait, what? He's like, well, everything you did through, your battle with cancer and how you just stayed in school and just, it was no big deal. You just were going to move forward. You had this. And I'm like, no, Sam, I just wanted to stay with my friends and stay in school. I didn't want to move back home. And so he said, no, you have the stuff. And I said, well, okay. And this was all his book idea at this point. And I said, well, okay, well, if you're going to do this project, then I want to come along for the journey because I want to learn exactly what it is that these people have in common. So I know what I had back then so that I could use it moving forward. And then of course I walked right into the wall of, okay, so you're doing this with me? I'm like, oh man.
So now that you got enlisted or conscripted, as the case may be, let's talk about some of these elements. But first and foremost, what is the stuff, and is anyone capable of using the stuff?
So yeah, the stuff is that cultivatable internal inner fortitude. We all have it. It's right within us. You don't have to go to your local grocery store or a convenience store to purchase it. We all possess it. Some of us showcase it in everything we do. Some of us showcase it at certain times, and some of us never tap into it. Mm-hmm. And so it's very important that, as you know, we all live our maximized life. You have one shot at this. You want to live your maximized life. And so I think for what we saw in these people's individual testimonies, mm-hmm. that the people that we spoke to, is that they lived their inner fortitude. They did not let their situation prevent them from going where they needed to go or to achieving what they needed to achieve in life. A lot of the stories that we share in this project, they're a wide range of stories, different walks of life, different themes. But there's a story in there of a family whose daughter was diagnosed with an ailment that pretty much would take her away from them.
Eliza.
Eliza, yep, you got it. Yep, the O'Neill family. And so, I see you read the book. So
absolutely.
And so the family quarantined themselves for almost 726 days in order to develop gene therapy to give their daughter a second chance or a longer chance at life. And so that's develop your team. And so they have this stuff. Whereas I've known people, and I'm sure you and your listeners, who if they may lose their job or they may not get the promotion that they want, or something that's what seems small but is big to them, and it destroys their world. And so these are elements that we sort of brought together into this project. These are elements that you can use for every transition in your life, whether it's a job promotion, whether it's marriage or divorce, birth of a new child, or transitioning from the work field into retirement, or something as those situations, which is common to all of us, or something that may be a bit more heavier, such as cancer or some sort of health ailment or some sort of financial crisis. These 11 elements we researched for 2 years to make them ironclad, to make sure that they're ironclad, to be effective, so that everyone who does have the stuff within them can try to bring it to the surface, as close to the surface and beyond as possible.
Woohoo! So let's talk about some of these elements, and maybe you can tell us about the element associated with John O'Leary, who we've had on the show, is one of the most amazing human beings I have ever had the opportunity to meet.
Absolutely. John O'Leary is Tues to Hope, which you alluded to. John O'Leary was burnt over 90% of his body, but more importantly, his mortality rate. He was given a chance of 107%, which is, as you know, if 100% is guaranteed, 107 is super duper guaranteed that he would not survive this. And it was horse playing around as a teenager. He was starting a small fire that just unfortunately exploded into something out of his control, and he tried to put the fire out, and unfortunately he was caught on fire himself and burned over 90% of his body. He was given 107% mortality rate, and this is when he was a young teenager, adolescent teenager, and his mother whispered in his ear, "John, it's okay. I understand what happened. It's okay. We're not upset. We're not mad. And it's okay if you feel like you want to go. If you want to go, it's okay. But if you want to live, John, I'm going to need you to fight." And John said it was those words that made him realize at a tender young age of being an adolescent that he needed to fight, and fight like he never did in his life. And he decided that day that he wanted to live, and live he did.
How is it our choice to hope, and how can we bring, it's a strange question, but it begets an answer. How do we find hope?
Well, I think that some of it comes from, there's other elements that we have as well. But the first thing we have to say that we can do it. Like, regardless of everything that we hear around us, there's a lot of different outside forces that, especially as we get older, that we hear about that give us a lot of reason to doubt that we can accomplish something. So it's really, it's hopefully with our book project, and I don't, it's not a plug for the book, but we wanted to have something that people could give people that hope again, that could say, look at what all of these people have accomplished. And sometimes we do need to see other people live through something amazing or extraordinary for us to say, oh, wait a minute, if they did that, then this is so minor that I'm trying to get through. And sometimes we need to see it, and we can see that strength in someone else. And it's like, wait a minute, I just did this. Or I'm capable. If they're capable of doing this, I'm capable of doing it. So I think that it's very difficult to see things in yourself sometimes, or a lot of the times. It's always easier to see things in other people. And hopefully, we can have people bring this hope to the surface by hearing what other people have gone through.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And just to add a little bit, I just feel like I think we all are born with hope. I think that's part of your lungs, your heart.
Yeah,
that hope is there. I just think society and circumstances and situations that bombard us start to dampen that hope out. And to Sharlee's point, by sharing these stories as a community, what it does is like it makes you scratch your head, like, you know what, John was told he was going to die, John O'Leary, and he survived. And if John can do it, my God, I know I can overcome this circumstance. So I think it's a realightening of your life and your spirit sometimes when you hear other people's story, and it's surrounded by like-minded people. I mean, just like the meeting of Sharlee and I coming together to do this project, it was never a planned situation. It organically developed, and it's just like one of the concepts is develop your team, and just being around her in a positive way and feeling that energy of her positive outlook sort of affects my outlook and helps me to see things more positively. And so that's the type of community, surrounding yourself with those sort of positive individuals, and that's what this book is. It's a collection of individuals that you can make your friends. They're going to be with you every step of the way, and can give you the energy and the sort of push forward sometimes that we all need. I don't care how strong you are in your position. We all sometimes need a little push. And if you don't need it, then this book is not for you. If your life is perfect, and you cannot ask for anything better, and you don't have any moments of stress, as small as they may be, then this project isn't for you. So for the 5 billion other people, it is for them.
One of the things I found fascinating in each of the different stories, and we'll dive into some more stories in just a moment here, is there is a point, like you said with John O'Leary, there's a point at which, Sharlee, you made a choice, Sam, you made a choice, John made a choice, Rich made a choice. Everybody in this book has made a choice, a decision. No, I will step forward.
Right. And that's so true. And to counter that, I have friends that's in my personal circle, family members, who they're in a situation, whether it's work, whether it's their educational struggle, whether it's their personal relationship, where they complain and we all complain. I'm good. I'm good at complaining as well. But they're not taking action. And it's amazing how you can find yourself living in that space for so many years and so long and not taking action. And just as you saying, one of the other elements, when you say step forward, is launching. One of our elements is you must launch. So you must launch means you just have to take the step. And a lot of that sometimes depends on blind faith. You're just taking a step forward, hoping that that next sort of plank is going to be there to support you. I mean, that's what I did when I made the pact with my other two friends. Even for this project, we didn't know this project was going to surmount to what it's become. We were on a plane ride, 30,000 feet in the air, and just that height helps my clarity with thoughts. That's why I always share these ideas with Sharlee here, because I'm up that high and I have a moment of quiet and I'm able to sort of gather my thoughts better. But we started this project. It was not formed. It was a loose protoplasma, and we were able to bring it together and mold it into what it's become. And that's what life is about. You know, it's sort of stepping out and going out on faith, but it is you must launch. You can talk about it, but so long, and you just have to take that first step and things will form and support you along the way. And most often it may not work out exactly like you planned it, but it will be certainly close to it.
I think a lot of times we spend so much time talking about what we're going to do over and over that the longer that we think about this, then the further we get away from doing anything. Because the more you think about it, you start to talk yourself in and out of things, right? And you start to say, okay, but, you know, if I go forward, that's when fear sets in. That's when, you know, doubt starts to set in. That's when everybody's outside voices start to come to you and tell you reasons why maybe you shouldn't go forward and do something. So I feel like you just have to do it. Sometimes you just have to push yourself forward and just start it, even though you don't have the entire thing planned out. Because if you do have it planned out or you think about it too long, then you end up not moving at all.
And that's one of the stories, Mindy Harden, whose story we share for You Must Launch. She was a parent raising children, and she felt this desire that was just itching her soul that she wanted to develop a company. And she developed an amazing company, which every parent has certainly heard of, called Boogie Wipes. And the company grew into a multi-million-dollar empire. And through some language in the contract, she lost control, and she essentially had to declare bankruptcy. She lost the company. That would crush anyone. She returned home to live with her mother. She had to find her inner fortitude again. And when, you know, she launched again, and developed another multi-million-dollar company. And that was her passion. So everybody's passion and sort of walk of life will be different. But for Mindy, that's what she wanted to do. And she was able to do it. She launched and she did it and she made it happen. And that's what's beautiful about these 11 elements. It doesn't mean that just because Mindy did Boogie Wipes, mean you have to go do Boogie Wipes. Whatever your call, your passion, whatever your sort of stuff is, you will find these 11 elements will get you there.
And one of the things with Mindy's story too was to explain what Sampson's talking about in regards to it. You have to make it relate to your own life. Is the one thing, like I'm not creating a product, you know, like I'm not going to go out and make Boogie Wipes. I'm a mother, but my life is very different than Mindy's life. Yeah. But through her story, what I pulled out of that and why I loved her story was there are so many times that I sit in a business meeting and have a relationship and somebody does something that is so, you know, like, why would they, if we had an agreement and this is the way we're supposed to do something, why would they go behind my back knowing what we were supposed to be doing together? Why would they just do the wrong thing, knowing it's the wrong thing and knowing that it's going to harm me? Why would they do something like that? Why are people that way? And now after seeing what she went through, I'm kind of like, well, that was minor, because I'm like, you know, she just moved on. Yes. She just was like, whatever, like eventually they'll, you know, whatever karma or whatever they have to deal with down the road, let them deal with it. That's not my issue.
No, I say, especially when it comes to Mindy's story, the way that it really transitions very well is for relationships. I mean, think about how many heartbreaks and breakups and divorce and people are, they're crushed because it's a tough process to get through. But Mindy had a period where she mourned the situation, where she grieved about what she was going through, was depressed even. But you know what? She said, I have to launch again. And she got up and she launched and she lived life. And she didn't allow what took place that was out of her control to sort of live in her life any longer. She had to let it go and she had to move on because, again, Each day you waste in that sort of state of mind is a day wasted of living, and we all have a timestamp. And so she realized that there were greater things for out there for her, and she didn't have all the ingredients, but she launched and she figured it out.
Woohoo! Maybe you can tell us about Mr. Rich Ruffalo, and who, in my opinion, launched and just kept reinventing himself. And along those lines, to throw kind of two questions at once, a dangerous thing to do, but I talk with my coaching clients often about forging their mission statement. What's a motivation statement?
So the motivation statement, and again, the beauty about these 11 elements, you can organize them any which way you want. For me, after Choose the Hope came my motivation statement. You're talking about failing my USMLEs, my board exam. I had to come up with something to motivate me every single day, because the terror and the fear of failing this exam again lived with me consciously every single day.
Yep.
Enough that it started to cloud my vision and my memory and my optimism. So I had to write down something that was very simple, that regardless of how stressed I may have feel in the moment, I was able to always recall. And that became the 3 Ds, what I call dedication, determination, and discipline.
And that became your mantra, am I right there?
And that became my mantra. That became my motivation statement. I had it on Post-its everywhere. Dedication in the community bathroom, in the dorm room. I had it on my door, on my desk. I had it on my wall, wherever you named it. I had those 3 Ds, and that became, because it was ironclad. As long as I was dedicated, as long as I was going to be dedicated and show up every day, as long as I was disciplined, I was going to get up at 6 o'clock every morning, go for my jog, meditate, relax, whatever I needed to do, as long as I was dedicated, disciplined, as long as I was determined. They can measure my height, my weight, but it cannot measure my will to survive. And so as long as I stayed dedicated, determined, and disciplined, I would crush this exam. And that became something that I took forward every single day. And I realized then, more so from that point, as I was saying with Sharlee, once you sort of conquer those moments, it's something that applies to every other aspect of your life as well. So that motivation statement, that mantra, we all need to have. Maybe you don't know what yours is today. Borrow someone's, that's fine. But eventually you can develop your own. And it's okay to use someone else's. But whatever it is, it should be something very simple, easy to grab, especially in moments where you feel like everything is coming at you in all different directions.
But to add on to that too, is that it doesn't have to be your own motivation statement. It could be, you could borrow from somebody else. A lot of young people coming up use his 3 Ds all the time to motivate them. And the difference, I think, you were asking what the difference is between a mission statement and a motivation statement is, mission statement is kind of what you're about and what you're doing every single, what the overall goal is, what everything fits within this one mission, overall mission. A motivation statement, which is important, is that thing that drives you and keeps you going, right? To get to fulfill your mission, right? You need that, extra drive and extra push. And I did not, and this is why the elements are so amazing, is that, I didn't really lean as much on a motivation statement as Sampson did. That was really important to him. I spent more time hearing positive affirmations and I would always call, and Sam knows I do this today. I'll call my dad just to listen to him say, I'm proud of you. I just wait for it. And that's one of those things that keeps me going, And so that's what I lean more heavily on to get through things. So it can fit however you need it to fit in your life. And some of the stuff may not fit in your life, as much.
Thank you. From there, let's jump ahead and let's talk about one of the others, which is pushing your limits.
So pushing your limits definitely for me was a personal story I share with you. No one close to me, forget it, in my family, ever went beyond college. And I have only a handful of friends I know who went to college, but they didn't stay in college. So I had to push the limits in the sense of, for me personally, was raising the bar. And so what was expected of me was maybe graduate high school, maybe get a job, in the community, working at McDonald's or a post office, and nothing's wrong with any of those careers. But at the same time, I had to push my limits beyond what my reality was, because you can't aim for what you can't see. So if I'm surrounded by these type of opportunities, that's all I would aim to become. And then, again, I know a lot of people work for the post office. A lot of people in my family work for the post office. A great job. Same thing with a fast food restaurant or being any sort of career. But I didn't see many doctors walking the streets where I grew up. Besides television, I didn't know exactly what a doctor did day to day. So I had to actually push the limits on what my reality was and aim for something that might have seemed impossible to others, probably improbable, but definitely not impossible, and make it possible for myself. And that was something that kind of developed over time because I was blindly aiming for that. But I pushed the limits on what I was told I could become. I pushed the limits on what I thought I could become at some point, and I pushed the limits on what people told me I could become. And I think that's important because you want to push your limits. I meet many people practicing medicine who say to me, well, I didn't think I was good enough to become a nurse. I became, maybe an LPN, or I became a tech. And again, nothing wrong with those careers. But if you want to become a nurse, become a nurse. I wanted to become a doctor, but, I didn't think I could go to school that long. Me either. Like, I didn't think I could go to school that long. So push your limits. I'd rather fail and not succeed than not try at all. And that's the point. Like, I'd rather push the limits on it and go for it, because I can live with the fact that, it did turn out that I wasn't the greatest. And we want people to be optimistically realistic, not idealistic with this process. Like, you're not going to be 50 years old and go play Major League Baseball. It's not going to happen. But at the same time, if you want to pursue something, you have to push the limits, because the point is, if you don't try and give it your best shot, you got to live with the fact that you never tried at all. I'd rather live with the fact that I failed at something that I thought I could do than to live with the fact that I never gave it a shot at all.
I think that was when we talked a lot about the difference between pushing your limits, because it was very important to me and Sampson to talk about the difference between pushing your limits, like a Sean Swarner, who, he pushed all these medical limits that were said, that he just wasn't supposed to be doing. Like, that just was nuts. And to this day, he amazes me with everything that he's accomplished.
I'll just throw in a tiny tag, which is he was the first cancer survivor, if I understand right, to climb Everest. Right. And he'd been given 2 weeks to live. Yes.
And he fought, how many times was he diagnosed with a different cancer?
Ewing sarcoma.
And he was supposed to die from both, right?
Yep.
It's unbelievable what he's accomplished. But on the other hand, too, what I have done with our foundation for the past 20 years and what Sampson was just talking about was, pushing your limits, stereotypical limits, and I would always see where young people would be told that they can't go out there and be community activists and their voices could not be heard because of, they were too young or they weren't old enough to vote. And we would sit there and say, well, no, your voices can be heard and you can go out there and make a change and you can it doesn't matter if you're old enough to vote. It's important. And so always taking those limits that everybody else sets around you, society says, well, if you're from this neighborhood, you're not supposed to become a doctor. Well, I want to become a doctor. So if you continue to raise the bar, especially for young people, we learned through studies and everything else in our organization that if you continue to raise the bar, those kids meet that bar. Yeah. But if you continue to lower it, they're only going to meet that bar as well. So this wasn't a really important, exciting, and it was a tough chapter for us because, trying to get everything into, a smaller chapter, but to really tackle both sides of this, because I think it applies to everybody, but in different ways.
So let's talk about a few more. Thank you so much, both of you. Let's talk about a few more of the key elements. First off, refusing to give into fear, or what it means to embrace fear rather than avoid it.
I mean, that's everyone. How many things are you fearful of doing? I remember going skiing once, and I never skied in my life, and so I'm not doing that. I know I've heard of people dying from trying to ski, but I realized that was a fearful moment for me. and I threw on the skis. I can't say I moved beyond the bunny slopes, but I tried.
Yep.
And but the point of the amazing thing about fear is the fact that you live in that space so long, so much that whatever you're going to face, whatever that challenge is, it starts to grow. And the thought of it, the fear of it grows more than the actual practice of what it is.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, I think Will Smith, the famous actor Will Smith, was talking about skydiving. And he was saying that when he went skydiving for the first time, he could not sleep the night before because of the fear of him jumping out of a plane. Like, I cannot believe I signed up to do this. He said, this is the most insane thing I've ever done in my life. I am so afraid. I am so fearful. And he said, so, he showed up because he had to show up. So he showed up he was on a plane and his heart is beating out of his chest. And he said, then his name is called and he's brought forward. And the guy that he's jumping with said, okay, we're going to go on 3. They say 1, 2, and they pushed him out of the plane, right? And he said he's in the air. And he said, it's amazing. He said it was the most beautiful thing he's ever done in his life. Obviously besides marriage and his children. But he said, in that moment of time, he said what he feared the most in that space became the most joyful thing of his day. As he was flying through the air, he said it was the most beautiful thing to see and experience. And it's amazing how fear was a part of it all the way up until the moment that it happened, to the moment that he was to take on this challenge, that fear went away. So if you think of it in that type of way, refusing to give in to fear is to refuse to give in to your own apprehensions of situations, because it's usually not real. It's usually not real. It's just something that we imagine and we've grown to being real because of what our perception of what it is until you try it. Once I jumped on those skis, again, I didn't become great, but it was the best. I still have vivid memories of skiing in Aspen, of what that felt like. And that's a memory that's going to stay with me the rest of my life. And if I would have stayed in that space of fear, I would have never have experienced such a great moment.
Woohoo! I like to say fear and anxiety are energy without motion. Once you step forward or jump out of the plane, as the case may be, or ski, and we just actually moved outside Aspen. So that's so cool. That's what you see in the background back here. Once you step forward, that fear starts to melt away. Let's talk real quickly about a few more of these elements. And so another one would be leaning into the hard work.
Well, one person that we talk about is Austin Hatch, from my home state of Michigan, and he was in 2 plane crashes, lost his entire family.
2 plane crashes.
Yeah, 2. Both were piloted by his father, and he had just accepted, prior to the second plane crash, he had accepted a scholarship, or had been offered a scholarship to play basketball at University of Michigan, which he had worked for his entire, life leading up to that point. And all of that was taken away from him, and he was he was told he was going to be paralyzed, never walk again, never, really be able to function as, normal ever again. And when he started to recover, he said, he started to do rehab, and he said, I'm going to go to University of Michigan. I'm going to play basketball. Yep. And it was hard work. I mean, it wasn't something that was easy for him. I mean, he had to go through a lot of painful rehab and just, and he's doing all of this while mourning the loss of his entire family. I mean, he had lost everybody. So it's not an easy thing to overcome obstacles. Like, it's not something that you just wake up and it just happens, because I choose to hope. It's gonna be hard work. It's not gonna be easy. It's gonna be painful at times. It's gonna be sad at times, and it's gonna be lonely at times. But you have to really work hard to get through these things.
Thank you. And then let's go to, there's a beautiful song that was running through your head for many years. Be optimistic, Sam, and staying open to unforeseen inspiration.
That's it. I mean, that was a song that I played in college all the time, and I'm amazed, or was amazed by, once I decided to choose hope, once I decided to launch, how many people showed up in my life to help along the way. And it was to this day, I still can fill any room with those who just came to my side to lend a hand. And I call it unforeseen inspiration, because These are individuals that I didn't have any relationship with. Some of them were my professors, some of them were people in the community, but they saw this will inside of me. They saw that I was launching, that I wanted to become something, and they came to support me along the way and to help me to. And they might not have been a part of my life throughout college or medical school or further into residency. They might have been there for a year or two or three, but these were people that became inspirations to me, and I did not plan on them being a part of my sort of immediate circle. I remember every year when I was in college, we would have this banquet every year right before our final exams, and I used to hate it because I was a college student and I had to put a suit on, and I used to hate dragging myself to this event. But every time I would go, they would have a nice little jazz band playing, and somebody would get up, a doctor would get up and give a talk and speak about the things that they went through and how they made it to where they are. And I would go and take the test, and I would crush the test the next day. But then that became something that inspired me and my two friends later to form the Three Doctors Foundation. So never did I think that something that happened back years ago will lead us to forming a foundation, because I know how that unforeseen inspiration made me feel. So it inspired me to create something similar to give other people the same feeling. So every year we do our gala, Sharlee Return to Foundation. They have a gala as well. But the purpose of the gala is not only to help raise funds to give back to the community and to showcase what we did throughout the year, but it's also to give you that inspiration. And we make sure that our program is meant to inspire that day. So you leave like, wow, I came to this banquet. I didn't think that it was going to be good. It's just one of those things to go to support. But man, I left feeling inspired, uplifted, and feeling great about life.
Woohoo! Along those lines, in this chapter, and maybe we won't go into full detail about it, but I have to ask about the power of prayer because of what you mentioned about your mom and the judge and what was, quote, supposed to take place. So what does the power of prayer, if anything, mean to both of you?
I mean, it's everything for me. It's the root of who I am. Or I shouldn't say just everything. It makes up a big part of who I am, meaning that it gives me the guidance that I need to go in and succeed at everything I do daily throughout life. There's not a moment, whether I'm laying in bed idle or if I'm up in the morning or at night, that I don't pray and sort of give thanks. I think besides being connected to the higher power, it gives you a moment where you're able to shut everything down that's around you, everything that might have trying to be beckoning for your attention and for your time. You're able to just take a moment and have your thoughts to yourself, and you share those with God. And my prayer with God is always like, just use me as best as you feel that I need to be used. And I won't question what you're doing. I'm just going to go, and I would know when it's not right, because I would get those same butterflies that I got when I was 8 and 9 years old on the streets of Newark. I would know I'm not doing the right thing. But until then, I just use me to do what you want me to do, and just please give me the ability to balance all that's coming at me, and to not feel overwhelmed and overburdened, and to not lose hope. To let my stuff always be at the top of what I'm doing to shine through.
Woohoo! Anything for yourself on prayer?
I use prayer a lot with my son. And it's something that we do together every evening, and sometimes in the morning. But I use that for me to start teaching him early on about really how to be very grateful for things, how to really center yourself, and to know really what are the important things in life. So that is my time that I do privately with my son, that we share together.
Woohoo! Last principle I want to cover, then a few quick wrap-up questions. Let's talk about flipping the negatives into positives.
I mean, that's everything. This the beauty, Mike, again, with these elements is, look, I'm sitting in a jail cell, right? I'm talking, juvenile detention, and up until that point, pretty much everything that I found myself into as far as trouble, I just called my mother, and she would figure it out. But this was one situation that she could not help me with. And my life as I knew it right then and there was over. And I mean, and I just could not believe this was what I became. And so this was a very negative situation. This was a dire situation for me. And I was able to say, I'm going to keep fighting. And I don't care if I have to scratch the bottom of the earth. I'm going to keep scratching and fighting until I could climb up and move forward. And I want to take that first step. And I want to start walking faster and then jogging and running. I'm going to keep fighting. And I found a way to take that negative experience, and it became an overwhelming, it's strange to say, but it became overwhelmingly positive for me. It was able to give me the fuel that I needed to not look back, to not waver, to not be dissuaded by some of the people, some of my so-called friends, like, oh, come hang out with us. Let's do this. Let's get into trouble. It was able to make me look them in the eye and say, nope, I'm going to go off and do this. You're going to go off and do what? Go to college. College. No one from our community ever go to college. Well, who are you fooling? And at that point, with that type of clarity, with that type of spirituality and focus as well, I was able to really see that they were not trying to prevent me from going. They did not believe. They did not believe it was possible. Whereas I then at that point had the inner fortitude. I had the stuff then to believe that I can see it as clear as day. Just like as you can see the opposite, I can see it. I really can see it, and I can feel it. And I feel it to the core of who I am. And I was able to take that negative situation and make it into an overwhelmingly positive.
Woohoo! What one homework assignment would both of you want to give people today to help them to use the stuff or to start stepping forward?
Just to erase all of the negatives, to erase all of the things that they've heard in the past about how maybe they're unable to overcome, and do things like some of the stories they'll read about or the TV shows they see that profile different people who have overcome obstacles. To remove all of that, start anew, and just start out with a little bit of hope and believe that they too can overcome anything that comes in their way. And they can also overcome challenges like going after that new job, or, jumping out on faith and trying something new. So that would probably be what I would ask people to do.
Yeah. And I would just echo that, as well as saying with this project, we spent 2 years in the past 20 years of our life just really sort of honing down these elements to where it's very simple. You cannot fail with this process. It's not a test. It's not an exam. It's not at a time frame. It's not, as Sharlee often say, like, she doesn't do well with self-help books because she feels like if she doesn't do step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and she fails step 5, then she got to start all the way back over at step 1 again. That just cannot happen for her, and I get that. With this process, you're on a journey with us, and you're going to see these steps become alive for you and for yourself, and you're going to use them how you may want to do it. It may be you're going to conquer your own Mount Everest, and so that's important to know that this is something you cannot fail at. And this is a book and a resource that you can always revisit at every different phase or transition in your life. You may say, you know what, choose to hope is very, very important for me right now. Flipping negatives into positive was important to me a few years back. Developing my team, I can see happening now as I move forward because we have a brand new grandchild in the home. So we have to develop our team a little stronger. So there's all these elements are applicable at different stages and different moments of your life. And this is a book that will stay a part of who you are for a long time.
Woohoo! So on that note, before I ask people where they can go to find their book, you mentioned grandchild. What advice would you both give to help parents with their kids today?
Well, I'm still raising mine, so I don't know. But I'd probably take take information that I learned from my parents and them raising me and Derek, and doing a pretty decent job, I think. But is that I would say the advice I would give is that kids at a very early age, have the energy, have the excitement, have the confidence usually. And it's easy to teach younger kids that they have the stuff, right? It's easier because at that point they're innocent and they believe that the world is theirs and it's there for the taking. And I think as they get older, I know Sampson talks a lot about this, but as kids get older, you know, they start to allow outside forces to get at them, and just making sure to continue to push your kids to be their best self, to continue to communicate with them and help them grow and help them just be happy and confident, that, you know, live their best stuff. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, you know, we live in trying times as each generation experiences different elements of advancement, technologically wise, and just reality wise. The world is a very fast moving pace, space that we live in. But you also want to find times that I think it was important to share realities, the good and bad, and find ways to sort of tease that out. Many patients that I take care of, sometimes if they're suffering from certain situations, they were just never exposed to these circumstances, and they fell victim to it. So I know it's not the most popular thing, but what Sharlee mentioned is all important aspects, but also have to feel that it's important at some point that you not only spend time with your child, but obviously show them some of the more negative, so that they are prepared to face those negatives, and not step out and face it for the first time on their own. Now, because they're 18 years old, you know, they're on their own, they're adults, but now they're experiencing the pressures that they never faced before, because they might have been prevented from seeing these things, which makes sense. Don't get me wrong. But you want to be real with your child, because the world is real, and the world is not always friendly. Sometimes it's not fair, and sometimes it's cruel even. And so we need to know all the complexities so that, you know, your child is prepared. But obviously that's somewhat later in life, but it starts off with the basic essentials that Sharlee mentioned: loving your child, spending time, having a resource. You know, Sharlee's family is a great team model. Develop your team. I never saw a unit so strong as theirs, and supporting and believing in one another. I mean, it is something, and it's as genuine and as real to the core as anything I've ever seen in my life. They really support one another, and so these things are going to help with all aspects, especially when you're challenged from influences that you cannot prevent coming your way.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. What personally brings both of you the greatest happiness, or what I call the woohoo factor?
Well, besides my son, is I love watching young people, you know, especially, and this is why I love my work, but I love watching young people realize what they can do and their potential. Like, I love when it's that like aha moment, like, oh my God, I didn't even know I could do this, and I can do this. That to me probably is the most exciting thing for me to watch.
Yeah. And I mean, I echo those sentiments as well, but I'm in love with life. I just feel that I'm going to maximize this thing as long as I can, and as long as I'm granted to be here. And that doesn't mean that I go and get a career and that's it. I might practice medicine 2 more years, who knows, and I'm going to try something else. But I feel you have to follow your passion, and you can feel your passion, and you have to follow your calling, and understand that may change and transition and morph into something else, and you have to answer those calls. And so as long as there's living to be done, I'm your guy, and I'm going to keep trying and figuring out what's the next phase, knowing that there will be a next phase, and I'm excited about that. I'm going to enjoy this moment and these moments, but I'm always open to like new ideas. And then I love the fact of someone saying that it's not possible. That's the greatest. That's the greatest joy to me, because I said, listen, you know, you could tell me 1,000 times no. I'm in search, and I'm in search and in pursuit of that one yes. And so I want to keep looking for it. And that's it. I mean, I just think that being in love with life is key and important for longevity.
Woohoo! Drive it till the wheels fall off, then grab the next vehicle and keep on going.
Keep going. That's it. That's it. Get there.
Where can we find your beautiful, beautiful book, The Stuff, and find out more?
The Stuff is available in all major bookstores. Of course, we'll talk about technology and social media, but every avenue online you could think of: Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Apple, Simon & Schuster, along with Jeter Publishing, produced this book. So Simon & Schuster, you can find it on the website there as well. It's available in audio as well, and downloadable as well in your e-readers. So it's a major project that we really believe in, and we did our best to get it to you in a form that is digestible. And please join our stuff movement at thestuffmovement.com. And if you feel that something is positive and about this book that resonates with you, we encourage you to leave a review on any of the purchasing sites as well.
Mm-hmm. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So if you didn't catch thestuffmovement.com, come on over to inspirenationshow.com and we'll get you over to thestuffmovement.com. And yes, write a review, write a review, write a review. It will help them so, so much. Before I let you go, this has been beautiful. I recommend to everybody to get out and get the stuff, particularly if you need to get the stuff to get moving in your life. What final words of wisdom would you each have individually for our audience?
Just that you have the stuff. I would say that you have the ability to go out there. There is no way to fail at this if you're improving your life and living your maximized life. So that's I would just encourage everybody just to step out and start living their best stuff.
That's it, and I can agree more. Just live your life and know that this project itself is it's to help to kind of tease out certain aspects of your life sometimes when you don't know you may not know you even need it at a certain point. But sharing these stories always inspired me as well, and I feel like they will inspire you. And most importantly, if you're doing it already, great, but be a giver. Be a giver of your time and lend a hand. And it's not something that you have to go out of your way to do. It might just be an encouraging word or a pat on the back or saying, "Hey, you look nice today." You may not even really mean it, but something like that really gives somebody a good feeling about themselves, and it might help them to change somebody else's life, if not yours.
I have to believe that's 100% of the reason. This was probably a lot of brain damage. And the reason that you did it was element or principle number 12, to be a giver.
That's
right.
You got it.
Well, thank you both so much. This has been so beautiful. You are both on a mission. You are both on fire. And it's really beautiful to see what you're bringing to the world.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get the stuff, and begin living your life today and shine bright. Woohoo! Thank you so, so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate
that was great.
it.
Thank you.
We support you so, so much. Love the mission that you're on. And if you can help one more person or one more child to not give up and to realize they have the stuff inside of them, it's everything.
It's everything. You got it. Absolutely.
Thank you for the support. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!